Alrighty. Looking 1 second, this computer's just giving me some trouble. Alrighty, there we go. Weird how they have this. Sorry, I work here down at and go to doing my master's at the University of Miami, and I'm using one of these computers. It just did not work out how I wanted it to plan, you know? In your mind, it works out better, but then when you do it in action, it's just like, damn, should have just stuck the normal way.
It's all good.
All right, man. I just wanted to start this off by saying thank you for this, but what is one thing that you right now, the way you look at basketball, that you're thankful for, just from what you've taken away being a basketball player, being around basketball your whole life? I just want to start that off with that question.
Uh, so one thing I'm grateful for as far as just my basketball journey. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Just like one thing you're grateful, something that you a takeaway or something that you're like, damn, I'm really fortunate that I learned this or something.
Yeah, so I mean, just I would say sports in general, but basketball definitely taught me a lot of life lessons, and one of them being kind of like the linear um, the linear relationship between hard work and success. And so the inconsistency, really, hard work, consistency, and success. They're linear if you take them all into account. Because if you work hard, but you're not consistent with it, you're not going to have success. But if you're consistent but you don't work hard, you're not going to have success. But if you do it in that order, if you have hard work and do it consistently, it turns into success. And so um, for me, after making it to the highest level, it has definitely shown me that I'm capable of anything. So it's one of those things that, kind of moving forward now is just figuring out, the things that I want to go accomplish, because I have the blueprint, and sports is what taught me that. So basketball taught me, how to succeed.
So for you, you're a guy that I actually found this out. I didn't even know this. You went to the same high school as Brad Pitt. I didn't know you guys were fellow alumni.
Yep.
And is that like kind of like the legend at your school? Everybody knows that, I guess, that if you go to Kickapoo High School, you're like technically classmates with Brad Pitt, or is that not?
Uh, I mean, he's kind of he's a movie star, obviously. So kind of hard to beat Brad Pitt when it comes to a popularity contest. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of the big shot that came from my high school. I actually had a classmate of mine who was one of the stars in High School Musical. Lucas Grabeel. So him and I
Wow.
graduated the same year out of Kickapoo as well. So it's I don't know if Brad Pitt had any big time sports guys coming out his year, right? But I'd say one of the most popular movies of all time, with High School Musical, and me playing in NBA 13 years. We had a pretty strong. Oh, and we just had a guy we graduated with as well, who has won like multiple Grammys for producing and different stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, we got a very successful class.
Yeah, it sounds like you're telling Brad Pitt to take a seat back to your class over here. How does
Yeah,
it feel
pretty much.
about coming out of like the Midwest? I did my undergraduate at the University of Kansas, so I got to see Creighton a bunch. And how was it, staying in the Midwest, growing up in the Midwest, just playing in that kind of like basketball environment?
It was great. I mean, I didn't know any different really. Kind of once I got exposed to the South and the weather being better, not today necessarily, but most days here, compared to the Midwest and the North, are much better. And so once I got exposed to that, it was like, okay, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to live. But yeah, growing up, I mean, I didn't know anything different, but the Midwest. So playing, obviously in Springfield, and then moving to Omaha for 4 years was just par for the course. It was a little bit colder in the winter, but other than that, it was pretty similar.
Was there ever like a culture shock when you did start to experience that? Because, going into like the LAs, the New Yorks, the Miamis of the worlds?
Not really. I mean, by the time, I was traveling and playing ball with professional teams and stuff like that, I mean, uh, I would, well, at that time, I thought I was grown. I guess now looking back, I was still a kid. But by that time, I had traveled quite a bit, just playing basketball at Creighton and stuff. Not necessarily to all those places, but to a lot of those places. And um, so yeah, it not a shock whatsoever, but it also, not being from a big city kind of made me realize that when it comes down to it, I didn't want to live in Chicago or LA or New York. Now Dallas is now one of the, probably a top five, top six largest areas. Dallas DFW at least is, but even like living here, it's definitely like the town I live in is like 30,000 people, but we're right next to a town that is 180,000 people, which is right next to another town with 180,000 people, which is just north of us is another town that's probably going to be about 500,000 people whenever it's all built out. So it's you kind of get a best of both worlds. You kind of feel like you're part of a smaller community, but you're still surrounded by all the amenities and things that you like. So and plus, we're only 45, 50 minutes from Dallas. So all the cool things that happen in the city, we can get to it easily, right? Anytime we want. So it all is still great.
So going over to your playing career, you're a man who I think sixth most in NBA history for teams played. But the interesting thing for me is I read Nick Nurse's autobiography, and the cool thing about Nick Nurse is he had to get into the NBA. He basically, started with the Iowa Energy, and that team was created in 2007, and you were one of the players on that inaugural squad. And first off, what was your experience with, just the D League, but with Nick Nurse, young Nick Nurse coming from, I think it was like at this time he was like from South Dakota, and just you spent a few years there, and that kind of kickstarted your career. Correct me if I'm wrong. Just tell me about all
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So he was coaching over in like the British League before he was the head coach with Iowa Energy, and so yeah. I mean, at the time, I always respected his unique coaching style. Um, he always was much different than he was.
How so?
Like just the way he actually allowed players to be more vocal than any other coach I'd ever played for, and probably any other coach that I've ever played for. Period. Um, you might ask our opinion. Hey, what do you think we should do on pick and rolls? Well, I think that the guard would really struggle if I showed. All right, let's show. Right. Um, instead of instead of just being a dictator, he was a true, hey, like you're the
Collaborator.
one who's out there, right? You probably have some ideas that could work. Now, was it every time? Was it 100% of the time? You'd always listen to the player? No, but I'd never had a coach ask our opinion. so so that was a really cool deal to have a coach that had more flexibility, and just like I said, he's just thought outside the box. I mean, what describes Nick Nurse to a T, in my opinion. Now, I haven't played for him since the first couple years of my professional career, but what described him really, really well was him as a rookie head coach with the Toronto Raptors in the finals against the Warriors, playing box and one. Like that, but right there was just like, all right, let's just throw boxing one at them. Just screw them up. Like they've never. You don't prepare for boxing one in the NBA. Like that's ridiculous. Like you don't. No one does that. And Clay was hurt. Kevin Durant was hurt. So they're like, hey, if Steph's on the court, or yeah, both of them were hurt. I think right. So it's Steph. It was a Steph show at that point, and so he's like, boxing one. Everybody else, if somebody else beats us, so be it. And so that I think that was just a prime example of who he is and the kind of coach he is.
Boxing one is like what they get you to do in high school, man. Like when you play against a kid who's just got a shooter, you're like, oh, boxing one, man. And you just like tell him, like tell the kid to beat you basically. Cause he's
Hmm.
that's
And that's what it did. I mean, it worked. Clearly, got a championship. So, um, and it really helps whenever you have a player like Kawhi Leonard playing literally better than anybody else at that time during that stretch. But that's just what it takes to win a championship. You got to have a dog, or at least one dog that is going to just dominate. And that was Kawhi that series. And the Fred Van Vliets and Kyle Lowry. I mean, everybody, Pascal Siakam, everybody. I mean, everybody on that team. They just had a really good, well-rounded team, and with a superstar, and with a coach that was willing to do whatever it looked like, whatever it took. So,
what when you played for him, like two-part question. First off, when you played for him, could you tell he was going to be an NBA coach? And B, how much did playing for the Iowa Energy prepare you for the long career you ended up having?
no, I did not. Like, just from playing for him, it wasn't like oh yeah, this guy's gonna be a head coach one day. Like, it's because honestly, being a head coach is kind of a crapshoot. You kind of have to get lucky. I'm not even gonna lie. There's only 30 of them, right? There's only 30 head coaches, and there's a lot. I would say there's a lot of guys who I would put in a category of that deserve to be a head coach, but like most of them aren't going to get an opportunity because it's just timing, right? Timing, having a team and an entire organization be willing and able to, um, you know, believe in your ability to lead the organization. It just all has to work out. I mean, it's similar to playing in the NBA. It's the same. I mean, especially as a role player, especially as a guy that isn't a superstar, it is all about timing. It's about being in the right place, right time, being available when the team that wants you has a spot that needs to fill a spot. Um, and because if the teams that want you don't have a spot and can't, maneuver to get you, then that means you're not going to play in the NBA, right? Like, it's just plain and simple. So you divide that by 10, right? Actually, more than that, because there's only 30 head coaches. There's 400 plus players. Um, that's what you got as the coaching carousel. As a head coach, there's a bunch of assistant coaches, but there's only one head coach on each team. So for him, I would never say, "Oh man, like he's going to be head coach one day." But like I said, I did respect him as a coach, and his style was different, but I enjoyed playing for him. And then what was the second question?
So, how did the G League prepare you to like for the long career you had, just kind of being a journeyman, but a guy who not wasn't like a bench warming journeyman. You like always played, and like I know a lot of times you were part of matching salaries, but like just being on the move. Like, how did the G League prepare you just for a career like that and being able to transition roles?
Yeah, so the G League is obviously what I know as the D League, right? And what the D League did was exactly what it told and what it said it was going to do. It developed me, right? It developed, and it has the ability to develop guys, right? And development is through both individual work and playing the game. I mean, it's really the only way you can develop a player is doing individual work and then implementing those things into the game. And having the ability to play and play a lot of minutes is where you develop. Um, Doing a bunch of individual work and never getting on the court to actually implement it, it's like you can get incrementally better, but the only way you can really develop is by doing both. So um, even let's say the first few years, if I would have been on the end of some NBA bench, um, you know, of course I would have gotten better practicing every day with the NBA players and maybe playing some scrimmaging with some of the young players or something like that. Yes, but true development comes in from the games and everything else. So that's what I got the most out of it, was just the ability to play and play significant minutes, 30, 35 minutes per game, um, and just figure it out.
And how was it like going from being a guy at Creighton, that was, in a place for 4 years, you were kind of, one of the studs of the team, to being, transitioning to a role player and to a guy that maybe had to always change the role a little bit because you weren't with the same organization, you weren't with the same staff or in the same exact role. How'd you, keep yourself on your toes and ready for any opportunity that arose?
Yeah, that was difficult. That was what became the job, which was like my brand was, hey, he's always ready, he's always available, he's always consistent, and he's not going to make mistakes. Every team in the NBA needs or wants those types of guys on their bench, and so I learned that. I learned that at a pretty young age. I learned that, hey, if I fulfill multiple different areas, and if I can be a pillar for a coach, someone that they know exactly what they're going to get. I'm not going to jump the highest. I'm not going to block every shot. I'm not going to get every rebound. I'm not going to make every shot. Um, I'm not going to stop every person. I'm not going to be perfect. There's nothing about my game that was like, oh my gosh, this dude's like the best in the whole NBA, the whole world at this. The closest to that was certain seasons, certain periods of my career where I was shooting at a very high level. Um, I think, but the best I ever received, the best I ever was, I think in a season was like fifth, right? In 3-point percentage. So, which is obviously really freaking good, but it's not like, that wasn't like, oh, every single season I'm top five and stuff like that. So I was just, I guess the 4 years of Creighton, um, all the things I learned from under Coach Altman, taking charges, diving on loose balls, just doing the tough stuff, the stuff that no one else really wants to do. It became also a part of my identity when I played the game. And so all those things you put together with discipline, you put together with um, just someone that's going to be consistent, then I'm a coach's dream. So all the moving around, all the different teams, and got traded just a couple times, obviously, but um, it really wasn't a big adjustment for me because I knew exactly who I was. I knew exactly what role I was filling. It wasn't. I didn't need to really change roles every year. It was, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna knock down shots, I'm gonna play great defense, I'm gonna do the tough stuff. I'm not gonna complain if I don't play. I'm gonna be the best teammate, and I'm not gonna get in trouble off the court. Right? Whether that be in Minnesota, Portland, San Antonio, Phoenix, Charlotte, Atlanta, doesn't matter. That's Anthony Tolliver.
When you look at the profile for players coming out today, you are kind of in that combo forward, small ball five frame where you could arguably play three positions, and you went undrafted. Do you think today, like, you would be better suited, like, if you came out in 2024 to like your games to take advantage?
Yeah, probably. I probably would have been looked at as a higher value piece in today's game just because of the defensive versatility, and then the ability to shoot. Obviously, never gets old. That's always going to be a valuable, especially now with everybody shooting threes. But yeah, I mean, my ability to be able to guard a bigger guy on the block with correct technique and strength would have allowed me to play, small ball five, or match up against even bigger guys, but maybe guys that maybe are bigger, taller, but not necessarily going to try to. They're not going to dominate me by any means on the block. But on the other end, now I'm able to make them run around and everything else. So yeah, I mean, I've thought about stuff like that. I mean, obviously, can't jump into a time machine and make it different, but you know, I I'm completely content with my career, the time I came out. I know there's guys that are making double than what I made in my career in like 1 year. I know that nowadays, which is insane to say stuff like that. But guys like that came out in the 80s and 90s probably looked at my career earnings and said, "Oh my gosh, he made that much!" Right? Like so, that's just how it goes, right? Like it's just as the game grows, the money's going to grow, and for me, it's basketball was always an opportunity for me to maximize something that God blessed me with, and then utilize that as a stepping stone to kind of level up the rest of my life. And that's exactly how I'm using it.
So, being a guy who played for multiple franchises, but not only that, you played for multiple franchises multiple times. How does it feel like when you ever went back? Like going, because I know you played in Detroit twice, you played for Minnesota twice. I'm trying to think, who else?
Portland twice,
Or how was that? Like,
Sacramento twice.
how was that like going back? Like, was there ever a time like, like the fourth time it happened, you're like heading back, like it was just something you got accustomed to?
Yeah. So the first one I doubled back on was Minnesota, then Detroit. Let me see. No, sorry. Detroit was first. So I went from Detroit to Sacramento, back to Detroit, back to Minnesota, back to Portland, back to Sac in that order. So actually, they were back. So all four of them were in a row. I never realized that, but all four of the double ups were in a row. And so it was weird. I guess each one of them had their own unique experiences going back to Minnesota. And, when I was there the first time, we were pretty bad. And the second time, it was a team with Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns, Jimmy Butler, uh, Jeff T. I mean, it was guys that made the playoffs the previous year, were the eighth seed, but Jimmy had missed like 28 games, and so I'm a free agent. I'm coming off one of the best years of my career, and I'm thinking, man, Minnesota, like the only thing they were missing last year was shooting, and so I'm thinking, man, I'm about to go to Minnesota and fill this gap. I've already been there before. They've built up this incredible team with three really freaking good players that we can, play or like be around. I'm gonna be shooting empty or open shots all day with those three guys on the court. And yeah, but I just didn't realize it was a dumpster fire. No one told me it was a dumpster fire prior to signing. And yeah, that situation turned sour really quick for many different reasons. But at the end of the day, it was a cool experience, and it also was cool to go back to places and back to organizations, because that usually means if somebody's willing to have you back, usually means that, hey, they had a pleasant experience with you the first time around. And so that was a compliment in my eyes.
So when you went around, what was like when you signed with the team, like you said, when you looked at Minnesota and you didn't know it was like a dumpster fire, and we all know like first off, my first question was the practice as bad as the media makes it sense where Jimmy blew up on the team?
Yeah, it was accurately depicted, I guess is the best way to put it. Like probably most of the things you've heard about it are true. Like I was there. I was there for the whole thing. I haven't really heard anything that like was over exaggerated even. Like I'm
Wow.
pretty sure every report I've heard
Uh,
about how it went and everything else, and how he left practice early, and went and did an interview with Rachel Nichols, right? Like we got done with our practice. By the time we were in the locker room, he was on ESPN. It was bizarre, right? Like it was just something that we didn't even know how to react to something like that, because it was so bizarre. It was truly bizarre. But
was it
everybody,
awkward? Because like there's like a bunch of young dudes who are like not even like vets, and then you're in your like you've been around the block a few times, and you're just like, so was there just kind of like an awkwardness after that?
yeah, for sure. I mean, it was super awkward the entire time. with him there because he didn't want to be there, right?
Mhm.
He's a great guy. I even to this day, I've always said that Jimmy is the best leader I've ever played with. And,
Mhm.
and people thought I was freaking nuts because they saw him doing what he was doing. I know Jimmy is a much different person outside of the practice and all that stuff. Like just from playing with him and seeing like his ability to infuse confidence into his teammates. I mean, that was actually what defined that practice was his ability to play on the third string team, right? And the third string team was made up of guys who is really like fourth string because it was four guys that were basically roster fillers for camp and,
Oh,
and Jimmy. That
so like
was
E10s basically.
yes. That was the entire time the entire team. It was a James Nunley which he kind of stepped back and forth, and he had a little bit of time in the league. Um, there's a kid from Marquette, little fast, super athletic guy. I can't remember his name. Um, but anyways, it's like guys that at best had like small little stints in the NBA, right? So not like they weren't NBA guys, like they were talented, right? They weren't in
Mhm.
camp for no reason, but they were not guys that you would say, oh man, they've been around the league 10 years or 5 years or even 3 years.
Yeah.
They were all guys who maybe stuck for a little bit, but mainly play overseas and stuff like that.
So like
And
Darius Johnson, Odom, James
yes,
Nolanley, Jonathan
yes,
Stark, Jared Terrell, those guys.
yes, yes.
That's
Those
wild.
yes, yes. And he took that team um, and won every one of the games. Like he beat the first team twice, beat us once. Like I was on the second team with like uh, I can't even remember now, but it literally was like just like the bench team, right? Like the guys who were going
Yeah.
to come off the bench, like our second unit. Which the first time they played the starters, they beat them like 12-2.
Oh, so
So
it wasn't
they
even
knew,
close.
oh, it wasn't even close. Like they destroyed them. Then the second game, we played them, and like so we knew we had to bring it. They're like, okay, they brought their A game, so we brought it, and they still beat us. It was like 12-11. And then the third game, the starters had a better showing, but they still got beat again. And that was right after that is whenever Jimmy just walked out. He was like, it's like, and the crazy, and I don't know if people realize this, but the craziest thing about that practice was that Jimmy shot one shot the entire time.
Like, so was everyone else scoring? He was just facilitating.
Correct. And so that's, remember, I go back to what I said earlier. I said, Jimmy's the best leader I've ever played with. And it's because he can take someone who, like I said, guys who are fringe NBA players at best, right? And he took them and made them, now it was one practice, right? It was 3 scrimmage games. So it's not like you're going to say, oh, well, but
Still.
But listen. I'm gonna bring this into today's world, right? So, but he took those guys and he purposely did not shoot because he wanted to show how dominant he truly was. He wanted to show that he was the best player on our team because they didn't pay him max money. He was like, "Screw you guys." Now, and I don't know what all behind. I know there's some other stuff too. It wasn't just about money, but it was that was a big part of it too, right?
Mhm.
They didn't pay him what he thought they should have. They should have paid him.
Oh, so this wasn't against Tibbs. It was more against the front office, this whole thing?
Oh, it was against all of them. It was against
Oh.
everybody.
Ah.
He never had, and a lot of the blame got put on him having beef with Cat and
Mhm.
Wiggins.
And Wiggins.
It wasn't.
Oh.
It wasn't about them.
It was the
Like
disrespect of
it was. I truly believe 90% of it was from the front office and above, like from like everybody outside of our locker room. That's my interpretation, right? Do I think that he thought that Cat and Wiggins could have played harder? Yes. He made it very clear in the media. Um, Andrew Wiggins is one of the most gifted players he has ever seen in his entire life, which is completely true. He's like, Cat is one of the most skilled big men ever in the history of the league. Um, and so it's not like he was like, oh, well, I'm just better than these guys and like I'm jealous or something. Like he's like, no, these guys are incredible players. Um,
Hmm.
and he saw more, I think he saw more in them than they saw in themselves, which was something that that rubbed him the wrong way. He was like, I should not be outworking you guys. Like, you guys need to be working as hard as me or more, right? I'm however many years older than you, whatever, whatever. So remember what I just said earlier. I said with third string, fourth string guys, he went and won those games. And I said, which it's one practice, but look what he did last year. How many guys were on the Heat last year that were you know, either fringe NBA players or undrafted or undrafted guys, right? Like how many guys were on the Heat last year,
Do you think
undrafted
people give too much credit to the Heat culture instead of giving the credit to Jimmy Butler? Because the Heat culture thing didn't start till Jimmy Butler got there. I mean, they always were good developing guys, but making guys look like they're freaking like
So think about the Heat before Jimmy, right? They were good
Dion
because they
Waiters,
had
Hassan.
superstars. They had D Wade and Shaq and Alonzo Mourning and like that's what made them really good. It wasn't it I mean, don't get me wrong. They like their role players were great. But when they won the championship, they had D Wade, Shaq. Role players were Antoine Walker, Gary Payton. I mean, come on. Like, you know what I'm saying? These are ridiculously good players, right? Um, and so none of those guys were undrafted or whatever. What Jimmy has done, to like, a guy like Duncan Robinson, obviously, but he's made his name for himself for multiple years now. All these new guys, though, that no one really knew, all of a sudden, these guys look like killers, right? They look unbelievable. Why? It's because, in my opinion, it's because Jimmy. Like Jimmy is that dude. Like he's just freaking good.
That's crazy. And like, yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense because like, I bet it's just like infectious, that personality, that drive that, you know what I mean? When you lead by example, when you see someone going kind of like ape shit, you want to like follow the same suit that like, if he's, and if he's telling you you can do it too, I bet it's only going to make you believe in yourself a bit more.
Well, I mean, he's just like a professional hype guy too. Like he knows. No, I'm serious. Like he knows how to. He knows exactly what to say and how to say it to certain people in order to
Uh-huh.
get the absolute most and best out of those people. Like I truly believe that. That's why he's such a good leader, because that's what leaders are supposed to do. That's one of the biggest functions of a leader is the ability to get the most out of the players that you have.
Hmm.
That I mean, just to have somebody like that can do it at that level, it's pretty incredible.
I mean, that's what they say. The best quarterbacks are the ones who make the, whatever offense they have look way better, like the Tom Brady. They always said Tom Brady, who remembers anyone besides Wes Welker, Gronk, and Randy Moss? You don't really remember the rest of the guys he threw to, but he has 7
Yep.
rings.
Hmm.
So for you, you were there when Ryan Saunders took over. And I don't know if that's the only midseason firing you were a part of. Any other times coach got canned?
I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. No, nowhere else was
Was
I.
that weird? Because and how obviously it played out with Chris Finch coming in and taking, who is a Nick Nurse buddy, uh, former assistant. But how was it kind of weird having Saunders, the Phillips son, take over?
It was one of the biggest reasons why was because I believe he's younger than me.
Wait, I
I
didn't know he
think.
was.
I think. I'm pretty sure. Hold up. Let me see. Is it Ryan Saunders, right?
Yeah, with a U after the A.
Yeah. Let me see. Is he younger than me? 86. Yep, he's younger than me. That's what I thought. So that was weird. Because that was the first time in my career I had a head coach that was younger than me. Um, and so that was interesting, but it wasn't like I thought he did a great job.
For
Honestly,
like what?
for the circumstance that he was put into, and everything else. I mean, it wasn't like it was like, oh, you're inheriting this unbelievably great, talented team. We had just traded Jimmy, and just there's just a lot of moving parts, right? And there was a lot of drama, and it was a lot of distraction. And I thought he came in and he did about as good of a job as you could do with the circumstances that were there. So he stayed really poised, and you know, I think that hopefully one day he'll get another opportunity to be a head coach if that's his desire. Obviously, he's had some success with Denver and got a championship last year, so that's never a bad situation to be in. But I don't, I'm assuming he wants to be back on that sideline as a head coach once again in the future, and I think he'll have a lot of experience to pull from
Mhm.
the next time around that can serve him as a head coach.
So I talked the other day with Shelby Mack and Marcin Gortat, and they both ironically in passing, and then we led into a discussion about it. Marcin was a lot more stern about it, but their belief that social media is not just social media, but the idea basketball players not only want to be they have the option to not only be a basketball player but to be an influencer, a streamer, a YouTuber, and that they were saying that social media and like the platform building presence of it all is kind of a distraction that you're seeing where you go into a practice and they're not even dribbling a basketball. The first thing they do, they'll take a picture of them with the basketball before, at a high school level and stuff like that. Do you think this is a legit thing? Because I've been hearing this a lot from, former NBA players that it feels like there's too many distractions definitely at a younger level.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some truth to that. I mean, I think social medias and phones and all that stuff, it's a distraction, period. Like, just to life, not just to the game. There's just a lot of distractions that come with social media and your phone and everything else. So, um, yeah, I don't disagree with that notion whatsoever. Do I think that it's such a big distraction that it's like hurt the game? I wouldn't necessarily say that. I would say guys as a whole across the board are actually more skilled than we were, in 90s and 2000s and 2010s. I think the skill level is just increasing kind of as we go. Basketball IQ, I can't say as a whole it's increased, but skill level has. So it's kind of, I think that the basketball IQ and development side of things, I think there's a reason why probably the top five players in the world right now are all from different countries. Um, I'm not saying that the different countries are better than the U.S. as a whole. All right, like we're going to win the Olympics, but individually, it's Embiid and Jokic and Doncic and Antetokounmpo, and who do you want to put at that fifth spot? Is it Shea? Is it um, I don't know. Like, I guess it depends on who you want to put at the fifth spot, but there's an argument for those five being the best five players in the world right now.
How would you rank that if you were in your head? The top five right there, 1 through 5.
Sure, after last night, I definitely can't put Joel Embiid anywhere but one right now. Goodness gracious. That was way too easy. 70 on it. It looked like it was halfway trying. Um, so Embiid number one, Jokic number two, um, Giannis number three, Doncic number four, and then maybe Shea at five. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah. Now that's probably like the five as far as like, hey, you want to build a team right now.
Mhm.
Who do you want to build around? And that actually might be a different. I might actually choose Jokic over Embiid as far as who I want to build around. Um, just because I've seen Jokic go win a championship. Like I've seen him do it. Like, do I think Embiid is probably top three centers of all time when it comes to skill set and abilities? Absolutely. Like there's not more than two guys, if there's two guys that are better than Embiid at the center position, skill set wise and like overall, right? Like athleticism, length, ability to block shots, rebound, pass, shoot, dribble, make plays. Like I, he might be the most skilled center ever, right? Like as far as just where he can do any and everything that you would ever want from the center position, but he hasn't won a championship, right? So I can't it right now as a top player, best player in the world, MVP, I can give it to him right now. But as far as being able to say who would I want to build around, it's probably Jokic by just a hair.
And you kind of touched on it. So I did talk about this with other guys I've spoken. So basketball IQ is something that I think definitely is something I agree that a lot of people have said hasn't grown with, the skill level as, not a lot of people. I would say this from a fan standpoint compared to football. The NBA doesn't explain how basketball works. People don't know what, how you said, most people don't know what a box and one is, or, what a slip screen is, or, what horn set is, or a motion offense and stuff like that. While people football know play action, what a 4-3 is, a West Coast offense. And with AAU, some people say it doesn't adequately prepare people for, the college level or even the NBA. And now with, NIL and colleges, instead of like you seeing all the veteran coaches leaving, they're not actually preparing guys to come into the NBA. Do you think that's a whole thing? Just they're not teaching people actually about basketball, but instead just having them just play as many games so they like.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting question. I would say that it's more of a they're definitely teaching a lot, or sorry, they're definitely playing a lot of games, not doing a lot of practice. I would say that's one of the reasons why basketball IQ isn't as high, because it's less practice and more games. Um, but I think as a whole, also, which is kind of the opposite, I think there's a lot of people who have played a lot less pickup basketball. I think that pickup basketball, at least my personal experience with pickup basketball, I mean, growing up, like that's all I wanted to do, right? Like I wanted to work on my game, but I also wanted to like play. Like I wanted to just get my friends together. Let's get 10 guys. Let's find a court and let's play basketball. And there's a lot of just things that you learn organically by just playing. And so, but I just don't like as I got older and as I start kind of phased out of that playing basketball every day or 4 or 5 times a week. I don't feel like the generations behind us really picked up those same habits where it's just say, let's get in the gym and let's play. Play a lot of just pick up basketball and get on the court. So I don't know. I do know that there's a lot less practice, and somebody mentioned kind of the European style, right? Where they're like, man, a lot of these guys are starting to develop really well and come to the NBA because they practice 5 days a week and they play one game a week. And it's like, or as Americans, it's, we're playing 2 or 3 games a week and practicing once or twice a week, right? And that's just a much different ability to develop.
And talking about practice, I remember when Kawhi and Paul George were asked after Doc Rivers was fired, they kind of scoffed about when a reporter asked them about practice, saying they'd never had practice with Doc. And you played under him. Was that something that did you ever? Is that something you could agree with? That like there was no practice like with Doc or with any other coaches in the NBA, or certain coaches just don't really do practice at all? Because I know there is, usually like there isn't much, but like some coaches do more of a walkthrough or like, like obviously development and drills and stuff, but actual what just whatever you just want to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that every coach is different. Everybody has different opinions on um, what should be done to develop and stuff. So, um, I'm not a coach. I don't really have an opinion there, but um, I played for a coach that practiced all the time, Stan Van Gundy, And then I played for Popovich, who, the only players that really practiced ever were the young guys. Which way is the better way? Well, Popovich won more championships, but um, but I also think that we were we were amazingly prepared for every single game. So
Do you think it's just
that's the only thing I can say about you practice that much. It's you know okay. Sorry, 1 second.
no, you're fine.
Somebody at my front door. Let me put you on pause.
Oh, you're fine.
All right, there we go.
Sweet, man. And I won't hold you up any much longer. So my last couple of questions are: what is one thing you would tell either the younger version of yourself, a high schooler playing, or a college kid playing now? A piece of advice you would have wished you had known.
Uh, hmm. Piece of advice, I would say trust the process, right? Like it's truly about consistency and just working every single day to perfect your craft, and um, that the model works. There's a lot of days that it doesn't feel like it's working. There's a lot of days that felt, man, I've put in the work and the time and effort, but I don't see the results. And there's a lot of times where that could have turned into me giving up or, changing course. But, something kept me going in the right direction. And so I would say that would be the biggest thing. It's just trust the process, stay with the process, and put in the consistent hard work, and things will work out.
What's one thing you could have changed, or maybe you have? I know you say you don't really have any regrets, but what's one thing maybe you would have done differently or changed, just looking back? Because
Uh,
hindsight's 50-50.
I would have probably would have been a little bit more aggressive, and I say that meaning my natural tendency on the court is to be unselfish and to make the extra pass and to be a great teammate, which is not a bad thing whatsoever, right? But I think I did that sometimes to the detriment of my personal success, and I probably could have been a little bit more productive um, if I would have, kind of been more so like, hey, if it's clear, make the pass, but if it's 50-50, be aggressive. And I think that might have been good for my career as a whole. Um, but at the end of the day, it all happens for a reason. But I would say that would be the only thing that if I look back at my career and say, if there's one thing you could do differently, what could have been done differently? And that would have been the one thing.
And who do you think was the biggest influence or role model that you'd have to thank for your success, that you were like, thank God I like got coached or played against him and made you a better person or player?
I mean, outside of my mom, I would say um, Coach Altman was a huge piece of kind of the identity that I set a tone with moving through my career um, through my NBA career. Like I said, the things that he taught and emphasized became who I was as a player, and so that really helped build my identity on the court. So and then my high school coaches were great. Oh, and outside of Coach Altman, I would go all the way back to my AAU coach, Barry Laurie, who played at Mizzou, and his son played on our team. Spencer Laurie played on our AAU team. He was our AAU coach, and so growing up, all the fundamental things that kind of helped me develop into a really fundamentally sound player that a lot of guys, a lot of kids, a lot of people don't get that detail of coaching as a kid, and it makes a huge difference whenever you're able to execute the basics of the game, and you can build on the basics, right? But if you don't know the basics, it's really hard to build a game off of a foundation that is not sturdy. So the guy who helped me build my original foundation and the guy who helped me build my basketball identity in college, I would say those two are the most influential on into my basketball success.
My final question is, what do you want your Anthony Tolliver to be synonymous with? When people think of your name, what do you want people to think of?
Uh, Honestly, you know, years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, I don't even care if my name is synonymous with the game. I actually prefer them to, people to see the things I've done outside of basketball, and, me be associated with those things even more. Because that's, to me, it's basketball is a tool, basketball is a game, but it's truly that. It's a game. Um, it's not my life, and it shouldn't be people's lives. It's a tool. It's something that you can use and something that you can maximize. And so for me, I maximize the game to the nth degree, like way more than I ever thought I could. And so yeah, I mean, businessman, great father, great husband. Uh, More important than all that, a man of God. But to somebody that has success, has been successful kind of wherever he goes. That's who I want to be known as. Oh, you're on mute.
Thought I unmuted myself. Very well said, man. And I guess that was my final questions, but is there any businesses or anything you want to, highlight or showcase if people wanted to keep up with what you're doing outside, any other endeavors?
Uh, I mean, I do a lot of different things. I've done a lot of investing and done a lot of things. I would say kind of the one of the more forward facing brands that I think that anybody and everybody can relate to, and potentially be a customer for is Big Blanket. So I was the co-founder of Big Blanket. Uh,
Really?
yeah. So
My
you know,
girlfriend has one. I got her one.
there you go. So there you
Thank
go.
you.
You bought something off of one of my companies. So so those are, that's one of those companies that I feel like everybody can relate to and everybody can benefit from. And it's something that is fun. It's a great gift. It's something that I love to tell people about because it's just a great business.
Yeah, no, it is. She loves her blanket. That's awesome, man. Hey, Anthony, I really appreciate you, and thank you for this. When I put it all, I'll tag you and I'll let you know when it's out.
Sounds good.
All
Appreciate you.
right. Thank you, man. Have a good day.
You
God
too.
bless.